made there, even from spring training when we saw him then. But yeah, he's definitely the kind of guy, a switch hitting catcher with power. That's the kind of guy you can build around. And, you know, we've seen some good signs from Laporta here the last few weeks. You know, Michael Brantley is not really hit at this level, so that's a concern. But, you know, there's some young talent here that you could see the makings of a pretty decent lineup.
Let's go back to Santana just for a second. And, you know, the question was about his language and the language barrier. But when Manny Acta is the manager and Sandy Alomar Jr., you know, is another guy that can help you in that position, I don't see how the language barrier, and it doesn't seem like it's hurting him at all. In
game, it could be a factor. And there was even one game where Mitch Talbot was pitching, and I think there was some miscommunication as far as pitches being called and trying to go to the mound and communicate. But that's just stuff that comes with time, and some of it just comes with working with the guy for a while. And I mean, you could have miscommunication with two guys who speak perfect English. So
I find that every day.
Yeah. But yeah, he's come a long way there. I can tell talking to him. You know, I first interviewed the kid, I think, within that 2008 season when they traded for him, and then I've seen growth from there, 2009 spring training, and then this year. So he's definitely improved.
How about Mitch Talbot? Last night, I think, is a prime example of a team that's young, that's getting older. On Saturday night, he looks outstanding in the beginning of the game, but yet you can't find a way to win. And I think that's a sign of just a young team that probably has great things coming.
Yeah, I mean, well, to get back to Talbot, just the, you know, with him, I think his innings are starting to catch up with him a little bit as far as, you know, going deep into games. But that's a nice guy to have in the back end of your rotation. You know, a guy with a 4-pitch mix who, you know, even on his worst days has enough pitches to get by. But as you mentioned, yeah, this team, a lot of times this year, they found ways to lose. You know, they've made costly mistakes, or they haven't taken advantage of opponents' mistakes. I think since the All-Star break, some of those wins they had, it was kind of the opposite thing. They found those ways to win late in games, and you know, opponents made mistakes and they capitalized on them. So that was good to see. But you know, with youth, you're going to have those games where, you know, a guy pitches well, and you don't take advantage of it. And I think this weekend, you know, facing a team like the Rays, it's a tough draw, and they got another tough draw this week with the Yankees.
Yeah, I would say 4 games against the Yankees can kind of build so much confidence for the future if you can pick up a couple wins here. I'm not saying you've got to sweep. I'm not saying you even have to win 3 games. But if you can split a home series with the Yankees at this stage of the game with this kind of progression for the Indians, I got to feel that's going to make this team feel pretty good for the rest of the second half.
Absolutely, and that's what you're looking for. You're looking for those little incremental, you know, improvements and those little confidence boosters as well. You know, you got to remember these kids come up and they're used to success at every level they've been at pretty much in their entire lives, and they come up to a struggling team, and it could be tough on their confidence level when you're getting beat and you're making mistakes, and you know, the level of competition is just that much better. So if you can have those moments, like if they can get a couple wins this week, that would definitely be big for them.
Trading deadline coming up, the non-waiver trading deadline's coming up this week. Jake Westbrook still on this team next week. Who else might be gone?
I think Jake's still on this team. I think Kerry Wood's still on this team. Obviously, he's dealing with a blister thing right now, so that kind of hurts his value right there. But, you know, those 2 guys are the main trading chips they have right now as far as guys they actually would deal and would be a difference maker potentially for a contender. You could stick Kerry Wood with his stuff in a setup role. That helps the team. There's a lot of need for bullpen help right now, and Jake is obviously a pretty durable arm in the middle back end of a rotation. So, but I still see those guys with this team next week because of their contracts. But I also see them as potential to be dealt in August because of their contracts. I think, you know, they can clear waivers and still be, you know, available to be dealt anytime in August. So
you buying that maybe Johnny Peralta might be leaving with the Yankees when he comes out?
I find that
as a bench player, I think it's interesting.
It's interesting. I mean, it could happen, and they obviously have the money. This market this year, there's not many teams willing to take on payroll. That's one of the few teams that can obviously take on payroll. So I think Johnny makes $4.5 million, and, you know, prorate that for the last couple of months. If you want to pay a bench guy that, well, fine. But, you know, as of now, I'm not expecting him to be dealt just because I think he's going to make much of an impact for a contender right now. He hasn't hit very well.
All right, as you watch the season progress, what are you watching for now in the last 2 months of the season?
You just want to see the young kids get better and the young pitchers get better. I mean, we're going to see Josh Tomlin this week. That'll be interesting. This guy who's done nothing but win at the major league level, or at the minor league level, so it'll be interesting to see what he does in the majors. I mentioned Michael Brantley. You'd like to see him progress and maybe be that leadoff guy of the future, because, I mean, that lineup, you know, you're seeing this lineup come together, and a lot of potential there. You got Asdrubal Cabrera 2, you know, Shin-Soo Choo at number 3, and then Santana at 4. You get Laporta maybe in that middle of the order mix at some point. That's, you know, potentially pretty potent. So it'd be nice to see those guys gel together.
All right, last question for you. Manny Acta if you kind of grade him so far for what he's had to do, you know, with limited resources and trying to figure out how to get wins and how to develop. I mean, it's an interesting situation to be in. From the fans, it's not a lot of fun. But I think from a developmental standpoint, it's interesting as you look towards the future. And we've seen this team, this franchise, go through this before.
Right. It's hard to grade him because he hasn't had the team he was expected to have. You know, you lose Sizemore pretty much right off the bat. He wasn't the player you expect him to be. You know, you lose Cabrera for a while, you lose Chu even for a few weeks. And I guess the main way to judge Manny at this juncture is, you know, is the clubhouse with him? Are guys still enthused and excited? And they are. And they should be. I mean, they're young guys, in a lot of cases, getting first real crack at this. So, you know, they ought to be excited to be here no matter the circumstances or the standings. So he's had to juggle the lineup a lot more than he expected. It's been pretty much just like Eric Wedge from that standpoint, where it's a different lineup, you know, pretty consistently. You know, I think he's handled the bullpen pretty well. They've had a lot of ups and downs, but they started to find some roles and solidify some things. But in the end, you judge a manager by the success of the team, and they haven't been successful, but they weren't expected to be successful. This is going to be a long-term project with this guy and these young players, so it's way too early to judge, basically.
All right, Anthony Castrovince from MLB.com joining us on Newsnet 5 and on Sports Sunday.